What is going on, guys? Thanks for checking out this video, my sports Gematria. In this video, I'll try to make it brief. I don't want to make it too long, but I'm just going to go over one simple question you can ask any public sports Gematria decoder and find out if they are involved in fraudulent behavior. I titled the PDF here, How to Spot Fraud in Sports Gematria. And this is a huge problem on the internet. And for people that might be getting into this for the first time or new to this topic, this is a good indicator to find out if the person that you're following or the person that you're thinking about joining their Patreon for their sports picks, this is a great way to find out if they are conducting fraudulent behavior. It's very easy to spot. And the best way to spot this, I'll make the screen bigger. The best way to spot this is just with one very direct question. And the way that they answer this question will determine everything you need to know about their work. What's the question? All right, so the question that you need to ask every single public figure who's doing sports Gematria to find out if they're operating fraudulently is, how many picks have you made overall? What's your wins? What's your losses? It's such a very simple question. However, how they answer this question will determine if they're operating with fraudulent behavior. And it'll be very obvious too. I'll give you some examples. How they respond. If they respond in a hatred manner, they're operating under fraud behavior. For example, if you ask them, hey, if you legitimately just ask them just straight up, just like, hey, how many picks have you made overall? How many wins? How many losses? If they respond by calling you a troll, if they respond by calling you a loser, if they end up blocking you altogether or deleting your comment or deleting your question, any type of form of hatred towards you just by asking that simple question is a huge red flag that they are most likely involved in fraudulent behavior when it comes to their sports picks using Gematria. Another way, or another red flag, would be if they give you an abstract response, meaning you ask them, hey, what's your overall, how many picks have you made overall in your entire Patreon career? What's your wins? What's your losses? If they give you an abstract response like, oh, I'm 1,000-0, right? Which is stupid and silly. Or I win 75 or 90% of the time, which I think is if they give you a win percentage, but they don't actually break down the numbers, that is a huge red flag. You want to know why? Because mathematically speaking, it's impossible to know what win percentage you have without knowing how many picks you've made and your wins and your losses. Because again, mathematically speaking, to calculate your win percentage, you need to take your overall wins and divide it by your overall picks made. That's what gives you your win percentage. So if they give you something like, oh, I win 75% of the time, oh, I win 90% of the time, but they're unwilling to give you their overall picks total along with their wins and their losses, you best believe that 75% or that 95 or whatever percent is utter bullshit. It's a lie. It's fraudulent behavior. Another thing that they'll say abstractly is, join my page and find out. That's another red flag. If you have to pay somebody money just to know what their pick record is, that's a huge red flag. On top of that, the chances are if you join their Patreon, their record isn't going to be posted anywhere. You'll probably have to sift through hundreds and hundreds of posts, hundreds and hundreds of videos to even get some type of semblance of idea what their picking record actually is. And even then, you still won't know exactly. So again, the hatred, the abstract, and the third one here is they deflect. If you ask the question, what's your picking record? Oh, total number of picks, wins and losses, and they deflect, that's another big red flag. They'll say things like, oh, I called the Super Bowl 3 years ago. What have you done? Or I went on a 50-day winning streak 2 years ago. Can you do that? These are all fraudulent behavior responses. Keep these in mind. See who's doing these. It's very easy to spot. Nobody who is being honest about their work, about their sports picks, particularly with Gematria, would be mad at you or hate you or get annoyed by you by asking their picking record. If anything, to strengthen the Gematria community, to strengthen this idea that sports are rigged by numbers, you would think that they would freely and happily give you their picking record to show you, hey, this shit is legit. Look at my record. Look at my work, right? Instead, if you're met with hatred, if you're met with these abstract answers, if you're met with deflection, this is all clear signs of fraudulent behavior. And I would be very, very wary of even financially investing your money or your time into what they have to say and what they're doing. And a lot of this stuff, when it comes to the sports side, I blame on the news side. Some people have seen my videos on my page, my YouTube. I've been very critical of news decodes, and it's because it's the same mentality has leaked over into the sports. What do I mean by that? Well, I think a lot of news decoders are delusional in the sense that they think they're 100% right 100% of the time. And the reason why they're allowed to have that luxury of mindset is because news doesn't have a win-loss result in the end. It doesn't matter what the story is in the news. 99% of the Gematria community firmly believes no matter what number connection they make to this news story, that it's 100% correct 100% of the time. And the only reason this mentality exists is because news doesn't come with a win or loss at the end of it. You freely have that luxury to be delusional with your news decodes, and nobody can prove you wrong because there is no win or loss result. Now, I'm not saying that there's no value or interesting things to be found when it comes to news decodes. I do news decodes sometimes. I find it interesting. However, the level of delusion any given person needs to believe they are 100% correct 100% of the time is extremely concerning for any sane, logical, and rational human being. And this delusion gets carried over into the sports side of Gematria. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you're decoding news and you think you're 100% right 100% of the time, and then you go to decode 10 games for the day and you only win 3 of them, your brain is not going to allow you to consider the other 7 games as losses. You're going to try some mental gymnastics and thinking that you're right still. It's very hard for people who think they're 100% right 100% of the time to then lose a sports pick. It shatters their world, right? They can't handle the rejection. There's not enough coping mechanisms for them to cope with that reality that they actually could be wrong. But I digress. Let's go through it one more time. How do you spot fraud within sports Gematria? All you have to do is ask them the simple question: how many picks you made overall, what's your wins, what's your losses? These type of responses will give you a clear indication on whether they are practicing fraud behavior. They'll have hatred towards you. They'll give you abstract answers that make no fucking sense, that don't answer the question. They'll deflect, they'll try and, turn it back on you without actually giving you the answer. And again, a lot of this stems from the delusion that comes from news decodes, thinking you're 100% right 100% of the time, and then being unable to actually cope with the reality that they can lose sports games. And so they just don't keep track of it at all. But anyway, I digress. That's all I have to say.